Hello, 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 and welcome back to Coach's Corner. I am your host, Lucas Kochevar. As always, it is Thursday, August 1st, and we are back with a brand new episode of Coach's Corner. Very happy to bring you this end of the week Coach's Corner as we dive into some good old fashioned topics. We do have a team that's holding on for dear life in the MLB. We have an offensive lineman that became quietly the highest paid player at his position in history. But first things first, we have to start off with what everyone loves, what everyone looks forward to, what everyone circles on the calendar in preparation for after the Super Bowl is over. And that is the Hall of Fame game. That is right, preseason football is back, baby. And that means we get to watch third and fourth stringers battle it out on a field that minimal crowd noise is heard and players are going half-ass, and it's just a good old-fashioned time of ugly football. And now I say all that kind of half-heartedly excited because it is true. That is what's happening. A lot of the starters are not playing for the Texans and Bears, but football is still here. Football is still on the TV screens, and if there's anything that it means that we're that much closer to actual football being played. The college football season starts this month. The NFL is obviously, like I said, the preseason is going on. We are moments away from the reality of watching Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Christian McCaffrey, just player after player. We'll get to watch on our TV screens once again in the fall. And it's super exciting because I look at the calendar sometimes, and you know how I feel like you pick out certain days where you're like, hey, that means that we're this close to this. I feel like, once you get into like that late, February push, like after, the Super Bowl is settled down, you've gotten basically all your football out of you. You get to look at the calendar and be like, hey, March Madness is right here. And then you go through March and you enjoy the madness conference tournament, week. You enjoy all the tournament stuff. And then you get to April and that ends. And then you're like, oh, wait, there's more playoffs around the corner. And then we hit this lull. We hit this lull in the sports calendar where all we have really is baseball and MLB or NBA free agency and summer league. And as you've seen me do this whole this whole summer, you've seen me try and come up with these topics day in, day out. And there has been stuff that's happened, obviously, but nothing compares to the buildup of a sports week with football as the forefront. Because I think in America, it's safe to say football leads us to all our other sports. The year truly begins in August on the sports calendar because we pay full attention to football. I mean, the ratings tell us that the NFL is king. And then we transition ourselves to, MLB playoffs, and then we transition to the beginning of NBA, and then we enjoy the playoffs in the NFL, and then we enjoy the college football bowl season. And the cycle really, it starts here in August with the Hall of Fame game. And it's the kickoff that means nothing, but it means everything. That's what the Hall of Fame game is. That's what the Hall of Fame game means to me. It is happening right now as I record this. I've recorded a little later than I've wanted to, but that doesn't take away from the fact that we are that much closer to regular season football. And, I kind of wanted to, wish to see maybe the rookies would play a series for Chicago, but they're not. So I decided to take this moment to look at the Bears as a whole. What are the Bears going to look like this season in the year of 2024? Well, it's the chapter. It's a new chapter in their franchise's history. And I mean, they've done a revolving door of quarterbacks, but I don't think any have quite had this pedigree that Caleb Williams is coming in. Now, despite what you think about him, whether he's a, nail-wearing sissy that will be a bust in the NFL, or whether you think he's the next Mahomes, nonetheless, I think it is exciting to see a new quarterback in Chicago that, frankly, is going to be solidified as the guy from day one. And you'll see, I think, fairly quickly whether or not he can morph into the player that a lot of people are projecting him to be, or whether he'll fizzle out. Because, I mean, frankly, he has all the talent in the world. And I'd say the only concern I have for Caleb Williams here in his early moments are his head coach. because Matt Eberflus is, not a first-year head coach. Some thought he'd be on the hot seat. A good end to last year with that defense really saved his job, I think. They got rid of the offensive coordinator, so they brought in a new guy. They have all the talent in the world. Keenan Allen in the slot, Roma Dunze on the outside, and like I talked about on yesterday's show, DJ Moore just got extended. They went to the running back free agency pool. They picked up DeAndre Swift, who had a great year with the Eagles. Their offensive line is, I'd say, okay. They paid Cole Kmet a couple years ago. The team is set up right now to at least make a wild card push, I think. I think this is a wild card desired team. I don't think they are going to make the wild card, but I think that's the desire, and they'll know where to plug, some holes in on this team after this season once they see what they have. And I think this is kind of a base foundation that the Bears are building here. They have the quarterback now, no doubt. They have a wide receiver they just got. They have a wide receiver they just paid. They just paid a running back. The offensive line should hold up. And like I said, that defense at the end of last year really came on strong with a lot of their young guys. They paid Jalen Johnson, who was stellar for them at the cornerback position. They paid a lot of defensive guys last offseason for free agency. Everything is set up for this Bears team to either make the jump to a wild card team immediately in Caleb's rookie year, or they will have to fizzle out. And I think you'll see a head coach fired. I think you'll see multiple veterans probably cut, and they'll have to retool this thing. But none of it matters until they see what they have in Caleb Williams. And so we won't see him tonight in that Hall of Fame game. But alas, Bears fans, I think you should be a little bit optimistic, or at least come into the season expecting growth and expecting a team that should be competing for the playoffs. It is not your same old Bears team. This is not, a base team you can look at and be like, I can convince myself into all these 50-50 wins. No, I think you're a team that has a chance to win a good amount of football games, but it all starts with that quarterback position and how they're going to coach him up and surround him with this talent, and how this talent is going to perform for him. So I'm excited to see what the Bears do. I think they should make the playoffs. I don't think they will, but they should. And we move over to the Texans side of things. I feel like it's only fair we touch on the Bears. We go over to the Texans, who have Andre Johnson going into the Hall of Fame. I didn't mention that. Devin Hester going into the Hall of Fame. Pretty cool. Texans are seeing their first ever franchise player go into the Hall of Fame in Andre Johnson. Frankly, probably the most underrated receiver of that 2010s era, 2005 to 2015 era. He's probably the most underrated guy there. Stellar career. Shout out to him. But the Texans, I feel like the Texans are set up in a similar way that the Bears are this season. They were that last season, where no one really expected them to do anything. And then they came out and they shocked the world. They won that division because of their quarterback, CJ Stroud, the number 2 overall pick. Really came out and showed that he was the guy. Led the receiving core of Nico Collins, Tank Dell before he got hurt, to a lot of yards. Devin Singletary got a great run there. And Laramie Tunsil proved why he probably is the best offensive lineman that isn't named Trent Williams in the game. But you saw them be coached up by their very young head coach, D'Amico Ryans. He took that defense, I think, and elevated them to a level that I don't think is really sustainable. But for that 1 year, I think they showed that they have the potential. And so what did they do? They went out and they kind of brought in the reinforcements. They kind of did the opposite of what I think the Bears did, where basically they had that season that I think the Bears should have this year, where they made the playoffs. And you know what they did? They doubled down on that. They said, you know what? Fine. We will spend the resources. We will go out and get guys like Everson Griffin. And I think they did a really good job of picking out pieces here that will fit them. D'Amico Ryans should have a very good year. And they went out and got Stephon Diggs. That was the biggest move they made. Now, I think you could make the argument Stephon Diggs is probably your classic diva receiver. Is he going to mess up this chemistry they have? But no fear, Texans fans. I think he will be a good piece there, because he's not, I think, your number 1 receiver truly. In the next 3 years, I don't think he'll be wide receiver 1. You have guys, Tank Dell, I think, is going to be your best receiver in 2 years. Nico Collins, who is a homegrown guy, really solid, I think could emerge and be above Stephon Diggs in 2 years. And then you have Diggs, who, like I said, I don't know how he'll work out here long term because it hasn't worked out in a couple other key good places. But for now, I think it's a really good addition. A new change of scenery could really help Stephon Diggs, and I think that's what was needed. But now we will really have to see whether or not the Texans can keep up the success because they're in a division where they have a lot of young quarterbacks who could also make this jump that CJ Stroud did last year. Anthony Richardson didn't get to play a lot for the Colts. Does he make that leap that basically he had a redshirt year? Does he make that leap that CJ Stroud had last year? Does he make it this year? Does Will Levis, who was a rookie last year and got a good bit of run, he has a new offensive coordinator. DeAndre Hopkins did go down today with a 4 to 6 week injury, but does that team have the makings of what Mike Vrabel built them up? Can they really come back and be a playoff team like they were in previous seasons, but just under Will Levis's leadership? And then the Jaguars, who have been flirting with that kind of division title. They had it last year, but they collapsed historically. Trevor Lawrence should come back healthy. They spent a first round pick on a receiver. They spent money on Gabe Davis. Christian Kirk is still there. They spent money on Joshua Hines Allen, I think is his name now officially. Trayvon Walker is still developing. So Jaguars and Texans should go head to head. But like I said, when you have a quarterback like CJ Stroud, you should be one of those teams that is also just in the playoffs every year. I think they have a good shot at that. And so those are your two preseason football teams who I think, if I had an outlook on what their year might look like, I think that's a good indication of what they could be. So moving over to the NFL, like I said, a player that got paid, Triston Wirfs, left tackle for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Buddy, you just earned yourself a couple trucks of money. $140.5 million, I want to say, for a 5-year deal for an offensive lineman. Absurd, making him the highest paid offensive lineman in history. Well deserved for a guy who's frankly just been dominant ever since he came in. He came in the year they won the Super Bowl. Ever since then, he's been basically, when he's on the field, the premier left tackle, I think, in the NFC South. Just a stud, just an absolute killer, and probably will be a benchmark for many offensive tackles that want to get paid forward. But hell of a contract for him. I think he will. He's one of those guys where offensive linemen don't really get that much recognition, but when you see a guy like him and you see how he impacts the game on that offensive line, you're like, yeah, he probably does deserve that honor. And so moving on to the sport that is happening right now. The road is getting a little bit tighter, a little bit tougher for this team up there in old Philadelphia. A team that, frankly, I mean, early in the season when everyone was like, hey, you guys have the easiest schedule, they're like, no, this is the team. We're the Fighting Phils. All of a sudden, that sense of urgency they had early on when they were just building that, division lead, that NL lead, suddenly the margin for error has gotten a lot smaller and the schedule's getting a lot tougher. 6.5 is the lead over the Braves right now. It was like 8 and 9 a couple of weeks ago, but with the Braves at least playing, I think, competent baseball now, the Fighting Phils are losing series left and right. They've lost 5 series in a row. That's right. Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 series in a row. What are they going to do here? I think they are facing the most critical part of their season, going on a road trip out west to play the Dodgers, play the Diamondbacks, to play the Giants, I believe. This will make or break the season for them. I think we'll see very quickly whether or not they have, the actions to back up their words, because I feel like the Phillies are one of those teams where when things are going great, they're the Fightins, they're playing at the bank, the crowd is electric. And then when they're not doing good, the boo birds come out. Trey Turner gets booed out of his slump somehow. And you see a team that really kind of starts to sputter, and you see that bullpen really start to struggle, which I feel like has always kind of been their Achilles heel. Could be an interesting time to see if they face the music, they beat the pressure, and they prove why they are the best team in the MLB, or as many people thought they were. So Bryce Harper said he wants to see more urgency for the team, and I commend him for being a leader. Just step up and say, hey, we've been sloppy. This hasn't been good. This hasn't been our standard. He says that, but now it's up to the rest of the players to act on that and be a competent team. So with all that being said, that'll do it for me. I'm going to go watch that sloppy football game that I mentioned. We're going to come back next week, hopefully with some good news to talk about on Monday. Hopefully the Braves trim down that division lead, like I said. But until then, I am your host, Coach Javar. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff for the podcast. I will see you guys next week. Goodbye.